Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 516 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fifth book just came out. It's called Perseverance and How to Be a Great Fraternity or Sorority Alumnus. So I want you to go and pick up this book either on Barnes & Noble or Amazon or wherever you get your books. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring fraternity and sorority leaders together. Fun fact, I love talking about networking with college students because so many of them think they need to start networking after college or when they actually need a job at graduation. That is a total myth. I want you to start networking right now in college so that way you can line up your dream job at graduation. There are so many transferable skills that come from Greek life that you can use in the corporate world. And our next guest is going to tell you more about that topic. Over the past 15 years, Lindsay Barnett has dedicated her career to transforming workplace cultures, leaders, teams, and individuals. She earned her undergraduate anthropology degree from the University of California, Berkeley, and her Master of Business Administration with an emphasis in entrepreneurship and organization behavior from the UCLA Anderson School. She holds multiple certifications in coaching tools and is an experienced facilitator with DISC, Insights, Myers-Briggs, Gallup Strengths Finder, and even 5 behaviors of a team. Lindsay also was a professor of organizational culture and employee outcomes at USC Bovard College. Welcome to the show, Lindsay.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I am so pumped that you were on the show because I knew right away that you were super fun, and I'm going to tell you how I knew that right away. But we're going to first talk about my favorite campus, UC Berkeley, for your undergraduate experience, which, by the way, this is like one of my all-time favorite campuses to speak at, which I've done like so many times, and I love the students there. So why did you decide that UC Berkeley was the right place for you?
So there's beyond the obvious, right? It's a beautiful campus, great education. It's funny because I went to go visit. I live in California. I went up the coast, did the big, UC tour, and I stayed with a high school friend when I was there. And of all the schools that I visited, the day I visited at Berkeley, it was pouring rain. So I was cruising the campus in the rain. There was a protest for the homeless.
Makes sense. Follows.
And I was like, I have to go here. So all of this stuff, there's something about the energy at Berkeley that is just palpable. And it was just a, full body yes for me. But I will tell you kind of a funny story where my parents weighed in a little bit there. So I went and visited Northwestern, and my parents, they met at Wisconsin, and they were like, you cannot take the Midwestern weather. So we're going to send you in February to Northwestern. Meanwhile, there's like a heat wave. I'm like, this isn't so bad. So I came home from that visit with a Northwestern sweatshirt, and I showed my dad. I said, Dad, check out my new sweatshirt. And he said, Lindsay, if you go to Berkeley, you can get a sweatshirt every day. Because the cost difference of going to public school versus private school is obviously a big one. But, I feel like the public school education goes way beyond the classroom walls. So, developing grit and perseverance and all of that, I think you just get at a big public school. So I really feel like that has stayed with me today.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I mean, if you want to see what student activism looks like, tour the campus at UC Berkeley, and you will see everything from we're saving the turtles to this to that. I mean, they're out in full force, and I'm like, this is good. This is what a college campus should feel like. And I mean, if you can't find something to get involved with at UC Berkeley, then I don't know, you're doing college wrong, because there's so much to do, and so many people are so passionate about so many topics that I know nothing about.
I know. I know. It's amazing.
It's
It's
amazing.
amazing.
It's totally amazing. And I still will never forget, I was having a conversation with some fraternity brothers on campus one day at UC Berkeley, and all of a sudden a robot shows up and it's making a delivery of food on campus. And I'm like, what is that? This is the first time I'd ever seen anything like it on a college campus many, many years ago.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's the robot that delivers food. And I'm like, what? You have a robot that goes around campus and just delivers food to people?
Of
And he's
course
like,
they
yeah,
do.
of course we do. I had never seen anything like it. I'm like, am I on Mars? I'm like, where am I?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, what a great campus. So much fun.
I know.
All right.
Yes.
And so I
Yes.
knew you were going to be a fun guest on the show because you joined Alpha Chi Omega. And so I need to know what was special about the sisters of Alpha Chi Omega that made
Yeah.
you want to join them over other groups on campus.
Yeah. So I'll say this. I had a little bit of an advantage because I decided to pledge as a sophomore. So I had, in freshman year, I got to know a lot of the women in other houses and got to get a sense of, what was happening, in the different houses, what people enjoyed.
Mhm.
And so when I went through Rush, I think I was asking different kinds of questions, but I think the big thing for me was, it's like kind of the cliche, right? Who do you want to brush your teeth next to? But I just felt like these are smart women. I'm kind of quirky, so like they seem to appreciate the quirk. Um, all, just really down to earth and just fun. So, and they just seemed like everybody liked each other. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And I will tell you this, it's convenient that this podcast is this week because next week I am meeting up with 6 of my sisters for a joint birthday party, extravaganza getaway. And these are just some of the most amazing women that, when you join a sorority, I feel like you want to be with people who lift you up and help you be the best that you can be. And I look around this group and what we've all become, in addition to being moms, we have a mayor, we have a doctor author, we have 2, executive directors, one of a foundation, one of, free legal clinic, an art expert from Christie's. I mean, it's just like a diplomat, right? Right? Like it just blows your mind sometimes because, we met getting dressed up going to parties. And yet here we are, and we've just supported each other through the decades of ups and downs. And it's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. It really is amazing to look back on it and think about all those relationships that started in college. And, you never would think that these people would be as successful as they've all become. I sit here and like some of them, I mean, one of them has like a television show on a cable news network. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how does that happen? I mean, it's just the most successful people you'll ever meet in your life. And they just turn out to be just rock stars, just bona fide rock stars. So
Yeah.
yeah, put yourself in a fraternity or sorority and just be prepared for amazing things to happen with your own leadership skills and
Yeah.
all of the connections and the network that goes well beyond just
Yeah.
that 4-year experience as an undergrad. I mean, these are going to be your friends for life. And I was having the same thoughts last week, attending a baseball game with my fraternity brothers. We were in, Milwaukee.
Yeah.
What the heck are we doing in Milwaukee? Because that's what fraternity brothers do is they
Yeah.
meet up in a strange, bizarre city to go and enjoy brotherhood for a weekend. And we're all dads and like, and
Yeah.
they're like, you're still hanging out with your fraternity brothers? I'm like, absolutely. They're the most successful people I know. Where else would I be going?
Yeah, I know. And you
Oh,
like, and the beauty of it is like you lift each other up, but you also roast the heck out of each other, right?
oh my
So it's
God.
so humbling
Oh my
at the
God.
same time as like elevating, right?
Oh my God. I mean, we have a text string where we're just roasting each other back and forth. I mean, we're just texting each other, roasting each other in the middle of the day. So yeah, that never stops, but it's so
Yes,
fun.
yes, yes.
I love it. And
So good.
you have a ton of experience yourself. I don't want you to sell yourself short. I mean, you have over 20
Yeah,
years of
yeah,
global human resources experience. You've been working with an array of Fortune 500 companies and startup clients. Our listeners are trying to figure out which company is the best place for
yeah,
them to work after
right.
college. So, how can the listeners come up with their big three drivers to help them to make their choice about where they're going to work?
Yeah. So, couple things that I would keep in mind is going back to one of your earlier statements, networking, right?
Mhm.
So, start doing the informational interviews now, interning if possible, but not necessary, right? I mean, I think in this day and age, I feel like everybody's stressing about an internship. I didn't have an internship. I worked as a summer camp counselor. Like I did fine. Like it's fine. It'll work out. Don't stress. But the informational interviewing is super helpful. I think a couple things that I would offer is thinking about, do you want to be at a big company or a little company? And I think that can help you start to figure out which path you go. There's benefits to both, but one of the things to think about is at a big company, you tend to be more of a specialist where you have like a role, but you may then have multiple roles over time to get the breadth of experience. At a smaller company, you're like, what hat am I wearing today? Right. And so you may have one role, but you're touching a lot of different things. So I feel like sometimes that's one helpful way for people to think about, do I like to go deep and then move on? Or do I like to just touch a lot of things and see what happens, right?
Mhm.
So that's one place that I would look. And the other thing that I would offer is what I call big three drivers. And really what it is your needs. What are you wanting to get out of work? And so I'll share my big three. I usually say find a big three because too hard to get beyond that. Um, but my big three, I call the three I's. My reasons for working and what I need to get out of work is I need intellectual challenge, I need adult interaction, and I need impact. I need to know that I'm having an impact. And by knowing those needs, it allows me to be more proactive, take more initiative because I'm able to really see what's missing, what am I getting, right? So if you're sitting in a job, it's your first job, taking my three I's, right? All right, I'm getting good work done. So I know I'm getting the intellectual challenge. Maybe I don't really know what the impact is that I'm having, but maybe I won't know that for a little while. So I can wait for that. But wow, I am not getting enough interaction. I maybe need to start like inviting people to lunch or to coffee so that I feel like, okay, I'm getting my needs met, right? And these are like social emotional needs. Everyone, you can go past the I need to work for money to put food on the table and a roof over my head, right? It's kind of moving beyond that. But being able to really think through what are my big three drivers? What do I want to get out of work? Will help you to be more proactive to make wherever you work the best place for you.
That's really good advice. I like that a lot. I mean, a lot of the Gen Z students that I talk to, they want to get experience in a lot of different places. And I think it's like, that FOMO, right? Always thinking that like somebody on the other side of the fence is having a better experience. And so I'm
Mhm.
not sure if I'm on the right path. Maybe my friend is over there. And so I feel like if you're in a smaller company, you're going to wear a lot of hats, to your point. And so you would get a lot of experience in a lot of different areas in the company and then ultimately settle on a place where you feel really good. And for all of the fraternity and sorority members, think about that in terms of the new member process. How do we create a new member process that actually allows our new members to experience a lot of different parts of our fraternity or sorority, so that way they know where they're going to land in terms of an exec board position
Yeah.
or a committee chair position. But you have to build that into the new member process to allow them to shadow, for example, all of the exec board positions to figure out which one they're most likely to land on. So when I think about jobs, I think about the same thing is, think about a big company or a small company. Small company, you'll get access to a lot of different things. Big company, you're going to be a specialist in one particular area. So you might not get all of those different experiences. So think about that. And out of college, I went to work for the largest publicly traded finance company. And I remember that I was a manager and I had the best statistics in the entire company. And then it came time for a raise, and the HR person pulls me in and she's like, "You've done great. Like, you're amazing. And so we have a raise for you." I'm like, "Oh, great. This is going to be great because I'm really broke." Right. And she's like, "It's a 1.5% raise." And I'm like, 1.5%. I'm like, "Are you serious right now?" I'm like, "I'm the best in the company, and all I got was a 1.5%." I'm like, "All right, this is not the right place for me." And sure enough, I was like, I put in my notice, and then I went to go work for a small company. And then I got everything that I wanted in terms of, hey, if I'm going to produce, then I expect to be paid accordingly. And so it was a better fit for me. So those are some of the things you want to think about, I think, a little
Yeah.
bit, right? I mean, a
Yeah.
bigger company certainly has more stability a lot of the
Mhm.
times, maybe
Yeah.
better benefits. But they have these like ranges that you fall into for different positions, and you're capped, right? It's between X and Y, and that's it. And unless you move up to another role, you're stuck there. So think about all of these things.
Yeah, and I think what I would offer, because I've worked at a lot of big companies,
Mhm.
asking them what the career development looks like. So I really benefited from being at a large company that was very committed to developing people. So every year and a half, especially at the junior levels, they're like, "Where are you going next? Where are you going next?" Like, so you had enough time to kind of go through a cycle, a business cycle or a process cycle, or, knock out of the park 3 big projects, whatever it was, and then move to the next job, right? And so I know a lot of people who have spent 20 years at big companies because they're getting such a rich experience and they just keep building on the existing knowledge and experience. So, some of it is it's just trade-offs, but it's a good question to ask. How does career development work, right? In your case, it sounds like it was, you know, maybe the monetary piece wasn't so much there, but were they also offering you more development, more growth,
Mhm.
more opportunity, right? To be able to still make it a meaningful experience for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably the latter there. Yeah, on the money side, it just wasn't there. You were kind of like fit into this box. But I think they did offer some good development over time, which was good. But it really was. I mean, you were pigeonholed into that one area, and
Yeah.
that was really it, until the next move, right? And I just wanted to get a lot more experience in a lot of different places, and it just felt like I was being pigeonholed, and I didn't like that feeling. So I was like,
Yeah.
nope, time to eject. But yeah, listen, I mean, I think, there's great opportunities at big companies, there's great opportunities at small
Yeah.
companies. You just got to figure out what works for you. But that's a great question to ask about what that development plan is like, because then you'll kind of get a feel for like, can I stay on this ride to go to the end of that development plan? So I think that's really good. The other thing too is I think a lot of people feel like they need to be the first person in the office and
Mhm.
also the last one to leave the office in order to get ahead. But you actually believe that it's possible to do less better. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I, I'm I'm a big believer on well-being, and that, we only have so much capacity to be able to do great work without taking a break. Otherwise we risk burning out. Look, there are some cultures that are full FaceTime cultures. They are what they are. Your management is reinforcing that. But when I work with coaching clients, when I talk with other people, and I've worked in some very creative, innovative industries, what I will say I've seen is when people take breaks, they're most innovative, they're most creative. And so that's one aspect of it, is being able to not just become a workaholic where you are at work at the exclusion of everything else that actually nourishes you and keeps you producing and creative and innovative. But the other piece of it is, I just lost my train of thought, around, shoot, where was I going? I had another point there about the first. Oh, and if you're doing 20 things not so great, you're not going to get as noticed if you're knocking 3 things out of the park, right? And I actually had early in my career, I had a more senior mentor say to me, pick the 3 things that you're going to knock out of the park this year, focus your energy on those. The other little stuff, do okay.
Yeah.
Right. Don't raise red flags. Don't, piss people off, but like knock 3 things out of the park. And I feel like it's a way to really think about, how am I spending my time? Am I just sitting here working on little stuff when I could be out hanging out with friends, like talking to other people, where I'm going to get some mental space to really come back the next day refreshed and ready to be much more productive.
I like it. Really good advice there too. I talked a little bit about networking earlier on in the show and the importance of that as college students, but I feel like a lot of them think that that process of putting yourself out there is just uncomfortable. So how do you network without the ick?
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like, and I'm actually running a 30-day LinkedIn networking challenge on this right now.
Mhm.
I think what I find in talking with a lot of people is that there are these beliefs about networking that make them feel icky. And so what, and those beliefs are, one, networking is just like large social gatherings with forced conversation, right? It just feels very shallow, not so fun. What's the point here? Um, the other belief is built around, if I'm networking with somebody super powerful and I'm rubbing elbows with the mucky mucks, but I have nothing to offer. The third belief that's worth busting is, if I ask for help, that's an issue, right? For a variety of reasons. And the fourth one is, I don't have time for this. So, there's a lot of ways that you can work to kind of bust some of those beliefs, to either make it more comfortable for yourself, or just to, what I believe in is really practicing the opposite of that. So just to give you an example, uh, for, asking for help, for example, right now, that's what we're focused on this week. Why don't you reach out to somebody who did help you and celebrate that you got help from somewhere? And it reminds you that you are capable of receiving help and nothing happened, right? The other person was happy to help, right? You didn't put an undue burden on them. It didn't take away from your competence and ability. So, little things like that are ways to kind of retrain your brain so that you're not going into it going, networking, right? It's like, okay, I can do this, because it is so important. I have literally gotten 90% of my jobs, internal and external, right? So that's the other thing, is networking isn't just external. Networking is also an internal game, through networking. and even loose ties. So I will tell you, my very first job I got because I ran into a sorority sister's sister on the street in San Francisco, happened to ask her what she was up to. She had just gotten promoted and was looking for someone to backfill her.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
then the industry I got into, no coincidence, was our rush advisors industry. So it's like these little things that you may not think are networking, they are, because networking at its core is just building relationships and connections. But if
100%.
we put in all these other things around it, but if you just keep it at its core and its foundation, then everything is networking and it becomes lighter and more fun.
Yeah. And we belong to the biggest networking organizations on the planet. I mean, when you think
Yes.
about it, I mean, Alpha Chi Omega, what do you have, like 200,000 sisters or something like ridiculous? I
Who
mean,
knows? Yeah.
who knows? I mean, and these are some of the
Yeah.
most successful women on the planet. And in every industry, in every niche, I
Yeah.
mean, there is an Alpha Chi Omega that is rocking it. I promise you. I could do a LinkedIn search and I promise you, I can
Yeah.
prove to you that it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable, and we belong to them, and it's like every one of them, every alumnus or alumnae in Alpha Chi Omega would absolutely help you if you were
Yeah.
their sorority sister and you were a college student just looking to bust into some
Yeah.
industry. I
Yeah.
guarantee you she would help you. I mean, it might not be today because she's busy, but like a week from now or 2 weeks from now,
Yeah.
she will absolutely carve out time to do a Zoom session with you because she just wants to help you, and you're a college student and you have
Yeah.
nothing to sell her. You
Yeah.
just want to try to get into an industry and you're looking for advice. Guarantee you she's going to help you. I
Yes.
guarantee it.
Yes.
And it's so funny too. You were talking about asking for help. I think that is the best networking like question ever in the history of man, is
Yeah.
asking somebody for help. And it might be like a little bit humbling at first, but I got to tell you, if I ran into Lindsay in a networking event and I said, Lindsay, I need to ask your advice about something. Instantly, she is tuned in and she is now the expert. I put her in the expert role just
Yeah.
by asking her that question. So she immediately feels good about this conversation. She's
Yes.
like, oh, I'm going to help Mike where nobody else can help Mike. I'm going to give him the advice that he needs right now because I'm the expert and he's coming to me asking for advice.
Yeah.
And whatever she tells me, right? I'm going to then walk away from the conversation and she's going to look at me and she's going to be like, you know, that Mike, he's a really smart guy. Why? Because he came to me looking for advice. Like, this is
Kinda. Yeah.
literally the mindset. This is literally what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So do it. Ask somebody for help. I mean, even if you don't need it, ask somebody for help in a networking
Yeah.
situation. I'm telling you, it's going to work out for you.
Yeah. And what I would also offer is make it easy for them to help you. Like the more specific that you can be in the request, like it's very different to ask someone like, yeah, I'm looking for a job, than I really would like a job in a retail organization. Gap is on my list, Lululemon, right? Whatever organizations, then people are like, oh, I know someone who works there, right? It's a lot easier if you can figure out how do I get a little bit more specific so they can make those, quick connections for me.
Absolutely. Love it. Absolutely love it. So, you know that being in a fraternity or sorority gives you all kinds of leadership abilities, social, I mean, we can go on and on about the
Yeah.
benefits of Greek life. So, how can our fraternity and sorority members best leverage their Greek strengths, whatever that is,
Yeah.
in the workplace after graduation?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I feel like I'm just tipping the iceberg. I think one of the things that you mentioned that I want to build on is this new member process, getting people used to kind of shadowing jobs and roles and seeing, okay, could I do that?
Mhm.
It is such a great ground for experimentation. I don't think it's shocking to anybody that I was vice president of intellectual development and now I'm in like learning and development, right? Like I got a taste for what it was like to create programming and it was fun and I loved it, right? So it's not a surprise. I did some recruiting. Huh. I did Rush. I was a Rokai. I help people make decisions. There's coaching, right? Like all of these little things, I think when you find your joy in them too, and you get to just play, like it's safe. Just play, try on all these different hats. Um, you're in an organization and you are navigating organizational dynamics. That is going to give you a leg up when you enter a corporate organization or a nonprofit organization, right? You're used to kind of figuring out how do things work around here? How do I read the room? How do I put together something that we need? How do I follow processes and procedures as needed, right? So there's so many skills that you get from being in the Greek system that can be applied.
Yeah, 100% agree. This is why it's the best leadership experience on a college campus. I firmly believe that. Because, yeah, I mean, there's all those dynamics that happen between you and your sisters and your brothers. And listen, I mean, we don't always all agree. I mean, you have whatever, 100 sisters, they want to go in 100 different directions. So, you got to figure out, how am I going to manage this? Like, how am I going to get them all working and rowing in the
Yeah.
same direction? And that's not always easy. It's not easy in the corporate world either, but you might as well figure it out while you're in college.
Yeah.
So that way, when you get to your corporate world position and you're a manager, then you're going to be like, oh, this is easy. Like I did this with 100 18-year-old women. I got this. Like the job part, like with like 10 people, that's
Yeah.
easy. Like
Yeah.
that's no big deal.
I
So
know.
I do believe that, yeah, it is the best leadership experience on a college campus. I feel like if you're not involved as a student in some student organization, whether it be athletics or fraternity or sorority or some other student organization that's trying to do some good in the world, I think you're missing the boat. I think you're missing out on some really good formative years to figure out what your leadership style is and what your
Mhm.
skills are. And
Yeah.
just like Lindsay is alluding to, she figured out what motivates her and what excites her by going through those positions in the sorority,
Yeah.
and that led
Yeah.
to a career. So good on you. I love it.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
We should also talk about service, because fraternity and
Mhm.
sorority is really into improving your community. And I think we have an obligation to do that as fraternity and
Yeah.
sorority
Yeah.
members. We're certainly very privileged with the opportunities that we've been given at some of the best institutions in the country, like UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
So how do we plug into these service opportunities in the workplace after we graduate?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say two things. First, there may already be existing things to just know about. Usually they're typically run either through HR or through kind of your PR, corporate internal communication, those kind of groups. So you can always seek them out to see what's going on. Um, I did reading to kindergartners at one of my companies, like as a regular gig, and I got the time off to do that. When I worked at Mattel, as you can imagine, there were countless opportunities for service because kids were our ultimate customers, right? So we're building playgrounds and painting schools and, all these, stuffing toy bags at the holidays, right? There's so many things that we did there that were connected to our business that helped us feel more connected to our customers. So, service doesn't just have to be this like other thing that you do, right? You're giving back, but you're also gaining so much from it.
Mhm.
Um, and I would also offer the second thing I would offer is if it doesn't exist, make it happen. Use your skills that you learned from making all these things happen when you were in college. Gather a few friends, talk to someone. Hey, can I get some money to make sandwiches for the homeless? And I'll just put people together in a conference room, put a poster on the refrigerator, see who shows up, right? It doesn't have to be a big thing, but it's such a great culture builder. I feel like if you put together a very simple plan, you'll get people to join you in it. And then, it's a great way for you to network
Mhm.
internally.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's really the best way to bond, whether it be in the workplace with your coworkers or in your fraternity or sorority. I think, there's only so much that we can do in terms of bonding and building that connection face to face. But if we're shoulder to shoulder and we're working in the community to make it better, we sure feel really good about that event, about what we did in that event to make our community better, and then the relationship that we have. And bonus points if you reflect on that service opportunity right after you did it. You get
Yeah.
bonus points for that. If you
Yeah.
can just sit in a circle and just talk about how we made a difference in our community today, and you
Yeah.
go around the room and everybody shares the feelings that they got by making sandwiches for the homeless in your community,
Right.
and somebody shares a personal story, maybe they have a brother or a sister
Yeah.
that maybe was homeless for some time, and before you know it, like the bonds between you and your coworkers are all like impenetrable. So,
Yeah.
so you get bonus points if you do some reflection activity.
Agreed. Agreed. Love it.
Really good stuff. Really, really nice. Your communication skills are really kind of off the charts. They're really,
Yeah.
really good. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure that a lot of college students are wondering maybe if they're shy or reserved, and maybe
Mm.
they weren't on, they weren't social chair like me. How do you find your voice at work?
Yeah. Yeah. So it does take courage, right? I mean, I think especially if you are in your first job, right? You've got to kind of figure out the rules of the road, what's safe to say, what's not safe to say. So I get I get that it does take courage. Um, I feel like for me, one of the things that has helped me actually a lot in recent years is really thinking about things in the spirit of a negotiation. So if my manager is coming to me and saying, hey, we need this by such and such date, in a lot of ways, if I think about that as this is the request, I'm entitled to a response to the request, right? And sometimes there's a lot of miscommunications around requests, right? So the manager drops it on on your plate and then disappears, right? It's like, okay, what do we do with this? Um, but remembering that you have the ability to start practicing with, great, when does this need to be done by? Where, we've got this other projects. Do you want me to prioritize this over that? Right? You may have like kind of your three questions that you start asking, but it starts to help you to realize this is not just a unidirectional conversation, right? All of this work is bidirectional, and the more comfortable you get with being able to kind of be at the table and negotiate, the more you'll be able to find your voice when you need it more, right? So it's
Mhm.
it's it's practice. It really takes practice, a little bit of courage, but you can build that courage and that self-trust the more you practice.
I
Little bits.
Really good stuff. I mean, there's so many gems in this interview. So our listeners are going to have to like listen to the whole thing over again and take notes because there's so much good advice in here.
Oh,
So
thank you.
thank you for sharing all of that. Now, my weakness is really good food. Okay. I like to go
Yes.
out for like just amazing food. And I get the sense that you and your sisters feel the same way about really good food. So the next time I happen to be in LA, and I'm not going to hold it against you that your LA Dodgers beat my New York Yankees last night. I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm just going to say, all right, we're moving on. It's fine. You're the world champions. Okay.
Oh,
So if I'm in
be a
LA and I'm
gracious
not
guest.
bitter about the World Series, then where should I go for a great meal?
So I live in this kind of beautiful beach communities just south of the airport. So you'd have to go there, but recommend nonetheless. Um, so I know you're a sushi fan.
Oh, yeah.
So sugarfish sushi, a lot of shishes, is one of my favorites, like melt in your mouth, so good. And so that's one. There's also a great local joint called Fishing with Dynamite, which is like a seafood place. It's part of a broader restaurant chain that, they all deliver. But Fishing with Dynamite to me is just extra special, but you have to call ahead in advance because a tiny place. So you got to get a reservation. And then if you're there for brunch, there is a place called Martha's that's right on the boardwalk. Best brunch. And you're just looking at the ocean the whole time.
Oh,
So those are my kind of go-to when I can, like, favorite spots.
you're killing me with these great recommendations because, I used to live on Long Island, right on the water, and we used to go and have dinner just looking out on the beach and looking out on the ocean. And boy, do I miss that. I live in Nashville, Tennessee now, so I'm landlocked, and so I get no good sushi. And you're talking about sushi and seafood, and all that stuff is as fresh as can be in all three of those restaurants. And of course, I have none of this living in Nashville. We do have great music and great barbecue, but no, seafood is probably not what I would recommend in Nashville.
But you have biscuits.
We have biscuits.
We were there with these same six girls and I were there 2 years ago, and we were in biscuit heaven. I mean, we were taking pictures with the biscuit. I mean, it was so. I'll tell you, you got some goods there too.
We have some goods. You have to like change your food palette, but yes, there are biscuits and barbecue. It is absolutely delicious, and you will have the time of your life going out in downtown Nashville. I promise you that. So it is a good time, but not the good seafood like you have in LA. All right. So if our listeners, if they want to connect with you for coaching services, where should they go in order to connect with you?
Yes. So you can certainly find me on LinkedIn. So Lindsay Barnett on LinkedIn, but also via my website, www.barnettcoaching.com. I don't know if that goes in the show notes.
Sure.
And then a lot of the tips that I shared are in my upcoming book, Working Hell to Working Well, Making Your Company Work for You. So that will be out early next year. So stay tuned for that. And so you don't have to rewatch this multiple times. You just get the book.
It's okay. You can do both. You can watch this multiple times and buy the book.
Yes. You lose the Mike commentary if you and all your gems.
Oh, I love it. All right. So go to Barnett Coaching. I'm sure you're going to put the book up on Barnett Coaching as well whenever it comes out. So make sure you advertise that on the website, but go to barnettcoaching.com, and then that way you can connect with Lindsay there and then pick up her book and all the good things, and then re-listen to this again, download it like 500 times so you can get Mike's commentary. So
and I'll come back, Mike. I'll come back. I would love to come back and visit.
All right, you come back and visit and just say, hey, you promised me that you would allow me to come back and talk about the book now that the book is out. And then I'll remember the conversation and be like, all right, you're right. I did promise you. But you're a fantastic guest, so you're welcome on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it as well. So thank you so much, Lindsay. And to our listeners, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed this conversation with Lindsay, I want you to like it and I want you to share it with other college students. And make sure you share it with all the Alpha Chi Omegas on your campus as well, because they need to hear Lindsay for sure. And what can I say? Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much. See you next time.